really, at the end of the day, it's just the matter of a macro market. It's just what happens.
That's why it's really important to have a plan. Have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this DJ?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, so we can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and gentlemen of all ages. We're back with another book club. This is episode number 22, and tonight we're talking about the psychology of money. For anybody that's been part of the book club for a hot minute or been following a lot of the stuff we cover, there's a good chance this is going to be pretty familiar to a lot of the other stuff we talk about, partly because it actually references some of the other books we talked about. But overall, I'm going to say this is a good journey into risk management, and I am happy to do so with my excellent co-host and panelist tonight. Up first, we got none other than Will Stevenson. What's going on, man?
I am doing fantastic. I'm doing a mic check because my headset died right before we went live. Am I coming in good?
You sound good to me.
Outstanding. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels, welcome to this fantastic book club. I am Will Stevenson. I travel around the states meeting people and building TV towers, and I am about damn ready and excited to get into this book. I was very surprised to find, dude, that when I hopped on into my Audible account earlier, I was telling Zenith before the show that this book was already finished and completely read. I believe that Charlie from Dollar Cost Crypto had recommended it long ago. And so I read through it along with The Sovereign Individual and some other ones. And so I was quite pleased to find out that this book had already been read by me. So I went through it again and I'm all refreshed and ready for it. So let's get into it. Farmer Jay, how are you doing, bro? What is new and exciting with you?
There we go. I am quite good. Not much new and exciting, just at a new job site, building.
Farmer Jay, your audio is cutting out.
You're a little quiet, my guy. Can you rotate your microphone so it's pointed more towards your mouth?
How about that?
Oh,
that is much better.
There we go. I had the mic setting down low on my living machine. We are live.
We are.
Not much new exciting with me, just new job site. Other than that, everything's good. I found the book was a good read or a good listen, however you whatever media you form to take it in it. But yeah.
Farmer, your mic is cutting out about every other word. Can we get another quick sound check from you?
How about here? Is that better?
That is perfect.
That is better.
Excellent. All right,
Okay.
sweet. Well, it's good to hear from you, Farmer. It sounded like you have a new job site, and other than that, you're just ready to rock and roll business as usual, right?
Absolutely.
I thought you said you were off for a month, dude. You're back in it already?
Yeah, they called me back. They called
you back?
Yeah.
All right.
Gotcha. Well, excellent. Well, let's go ahead. Nice, dude. Hell yeah. Let's go ahead and toss it over to my brother, Sam. Sam, how's it going, bro? What is new and exciting with you, Mr. Bungalows for Bachelors? I heard you just did a giveaway not too long ago.
Yes, not too long ago, but a few minutes. Yes. Hello, brother. Things are great. I am bouncing around trying to make social media things happen on Bungalows for Bachelors and help people out, grow the community, make things happen. So if you guys want to learn about residential construction, you ought to realize that you probably are going to live in a house at some point. And so you should know something about it. So just come on over. The whole thing's free. Join. I've got the home building program. I've got the framing design program. I am working on the home design program where you're going to be able to draw your own plans. And you're not going to have to go to some designer dude who's going to cost you somewhere between $2,000 to $10,000 for your plans. You could just do it yourself. So I give you everything you need. Check it on out. And come over and hang out with us because we just have a good time. But yeah, I've got a $400 giveaway going on right now. If you want a gift card to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's or a McCoy's or a Menards or something like that, where you can get 2x4s or sod to grow corn, whatever you want to do, check it out. Go enter the giveaway. You can either show up on the live streams. You can share this, like do the Instagram thing. Go find the Instagram post and like share it. That gets you entries. And then joining my Telegram also gets you entries. So check it out. That's what I got going on. I'm excited.
I do have something now that I remembered. There's something new and exciting. There's this wonderful.
It is your audio is a little bit quiet again, Farm. I'm not sure what's going on. Say again.
Yeah, let me do that. I said I do have one thing that's new and exciting. It's this wonderful book I got yesterday here that I'm looking forward to getting into.
Hell yeah. Excellent. Farmer J, I believe that you were the first to receive, or you're the first to let us know that you have received it in the mail. So it turns out my ability to ship things is 100% efficient. So far, I've been great.
You did spell the city with an E instead of an I, but it still got it.
Oh, okay. Well, the post office gentleman was kind enough to be able to figure it out for me. So I'm glad that it all got worked out. Sam, on the subject of your giveaways, I hear that someone on this very panel just won one of those ticket entries, or actually, they win 3 ticket entries.
Yes, actually, and I just realized I made a brief mistake. So he won 5 entries today.
Holy smokes!
Holy smokes! Yeah, 5 entries because he won 3 from being on my live stream, which I do every single day, and he won 2 because he joined my Telegram. So I actually need to go fix that. But yeah, it's this man right over here. Beyond.
What can I say? I'm 5 2x4s closer to a shed to live in now, so that's good.
There we go.
That's right.
So you do this drawing once every 4 months, and these tickets for entries just keep accumulating for everybody who joins up until that point. Like as long as they're there every day for your little daily spin giveaway thing.
That's correct. So, well, that's mostly correct. The timeline thing is not quite sure. I know I'm doing this first draw on June 14th. So this is going to be right before Father's Day. If you want to, get some gifts for your fathers and stuff like that. It's a $400 gift card to Home Depot is pretty great. I mean, who doesn't want a couple of nails? So
excellent. I've gone ahead and dropped the link for the YouTube chat. Again, that's where you guys can find Sam doing this ticket giveaway. It's pretty much every day at 6:45 Central Time, which I suppose would be 7. So it basically happens right before DGen Roundtable every. Except Sam does it every day. So the time has changed a few times. So just keep your ear to the ground in his Telegram chat if you want to partake. But I mean, you could rack up an easy like 3 tickets a day, as long as you're winning and going and putting your name in there every single day. So it's just a fun way to boost engagement and give us all that little dopamine hit. And it's super cool and awesome. So stoked that you're doing that, and stoked that Zenith won his very first entry. So that was pretty cool. But anyways, guys, let's get back to this fucking book that we're supposed to be talking about, right? Or
we are.
Yeah, drive the ship, Zenith.
I will for sure. I'm going to go into my fastest 5 minutes of a book summary right after I hit 2 chat shoutouts. We want to say hello to the people that are joining us on a lovely Friday, a long weekend Friday too. So happy Memorial Day to everybody. Mrs. Producer, if you are ready, up first, our first commenter of the day, Jenna Nelson. She says happy Friday. Happy Friday, Jenna. Good to see you. Good to see you talking books with us as well. And then last but not least, Crypto Compassion with the eyeballs checking in, just seeing what we're up to. This is it. This is what we're up to right here. Not much more than that. Alrighty, if you guys have any questions or topics from the book that you want us to talk about, or you want to give us your insights on the book, go ahead and drop it in the chat and we will cover it as much as possible. Other than that, it is time to dive into it. So, Psychology of Money, as I mentioned earlier, it's a book kind of about risk management, and it actually references some of the other books that we've talked about. Specifically, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator is specifically called out here on the idea of getting wealthy and staying wealthy, as opposed to just getting super rich and then going super broke, and then ultimately, finding your way to the edge of the Empire State Building. That being said, here are all the chapters. There's a bunch of different ones, but I will try to tie the themes together as much as I can. All right, here we go. First off, he starts off with the idea that no one is crazy and everything is based on your own experience and your fundamental shaping worldviews. Up next, we have luck and risk, the idea of what is getting lucky, and then the other side of that in this book, which they define as risk, or what happens when failure happens. Up next, we have never enough, the idea of not succumbing to the ever-shifting goalpost about you keep getting rich, but your bets keep getting bigger, and ultimately, the chance of going broke, that's where that comes from. Next up, we have confounding compounding. This is the idea that compounding wealth and compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world, and one of the ways that you can get wealthy and stay wealthy, which is the next chapter as well. The idea of once you got money, you got to keep it. It's hard to make it. It's also hard to keep it. Next up, we have the chapter Tails You Win. This is the idea that when you are designing your strategies, you should still be able to lose and survive, and also possibly profit slightly. You don't always have to be hitting it out of the park. Survival is the name of the game. Up next, we have the chapter on freedom. The idea that, like, what is freedom? Is it making more money, or is it being able to use your time? Some good examples in that one. We might get to it if we get a chance. Up next, we have the man in the car paradox. And then after that, we have also tied to it, wealth is what you don't see. These are the ideas about, like, what is wealth as opposed to just being rich and spending money, because wealth is all the money that you don't see. You see the fancy cars, but you don't see the numbers in the bank account unless you look for it. Next, we have save money. This is the idea that you might toil over a 1% increase in your income or financial gains. However, at the same time, there's very easily a 2 to 3% increase that you could do by just doing some basic accounting of your own life. After that, we have reasonable is better than rational. This is one of the chapters I want to focus on tonight. It's the idea that rational is more of using full frontal cortex in trying to make mathematically optimal plays, versus reasonable is this like odd social context that comes with investing that also is not going to help you squeeze the absolute most percentages out of all your plays, but it's going to help you sleep at night, and it's going to help you not look foolish and survive in the long game, which is one of the things this book likes to hammer home. Next up, we got surprise. Again, this is the idea that things happen, so you got to have, what is the next chapter? Room for error. Those two go hand in hand. So make sure that you are unable to foresee everything. So having breathing room is very important, so that you have possible room for downside, so that you don't just get wiped out completely. Up next, we have You Will Change and Nothing is Free. These are, along with You and Me, these are more of lifestyle chapters. And then up next, we have The Seduction of Pessimism. It's the idea that if I tell you that your average gains for the year are going to be about 10%, that is not record-breaking news. But if I tell you that everything is going to go to shit, you're going to want to try to get more information on that. Say that your brain latches onto these more pessimistic ideas instead of optimistic ideas. That also gets tied to When You'll Believe Anything. And then lastly, we have All Together Now, which is the summary chapter as well. And they do a very good job of tying it all together in the conclusion chapter. There's a lot of topics. If you go listen to that one, that is a chapter that really just wraps all the concepts together, because it sounds like we went through a lot. And spoiler, we did. So we're going to be talking about a lot on the show tonight. That is what we got. All right. So you can take me off full screen now. First off, I want to talk about the first chapter of the book, which is that no one is crazy. One of the fundamental ideas of this book, in my opinion, is that no two people are going to operate the same way. And the reason that is because the environment that you grow up in is partly going to shape how you view money. So one of the examples that they gave is that even in a span of 10 different years, you could be a person where you watch the S&P 500 like nearly double in 5 years, or you could be a person that watch it go down 10% over 5 years. And that is going to change how you view some of these aspects, and then also how you're going to interact with them. So I want to throw it to the panel. How do you guys think the current age has shaped the investment views of people that have been in the market over like the last 5 to 10 years? Like, are there any standout?
I would imagine that like their perceptions are probably pretty optimal. And I was actually talking to somebody recently who's an older dude, and he talked a lot about how a lot of people that have really only been adulty since after the 2008 market crash, they've only seen it go up. And so they're like way riskier. And like, that was kind of one of the things that he was talking to me about. He's like, well, be careful, doing your crypto thing, because like the markets also go down, and it's all tied together. So, not up only all the time.
I will
Very
say
true. Go for it, Will.
I like the severeness of our little Ponzi world, like number go down. It's like, it doesn't just go down. It goes down and cripples everybody. And then, like there's dudes commit suicide. There's like freaking people losing their families. There's like folks that have to like put down their dogs. There's like all sorts of craziness that like, I mean, you have this regular like nastiness in the stock market, but it's really slow and it takes forever. This one's like it's ripping off the band-aid, and you're squirting blood out everywhere, and you're dying real fast and crazy. But then a real quick like team comes and stitches it all up, all within like what so far works out to be a 4-year cycle. So like it's not as like, like when the stock market crashes and you're looking to retire in like a set period of time. If the stock market crashes while you're looking to retire, then you're just like generally fucked, because like that's a several year process. That's like a super long time. Whereas like if crypto goes down while you're trying to, like, I mean, I don't know if anyone's trying to retire in this like 12 to 16 years that crypto's been around. I think is it 16 years? Was this the fourth happening or the third?
This was the fourth happening.
This was the fourth. Okay, so yeah, in this 16 years that good old Bitcoin's been around, I'm sure that there's somebody who's been like retiring and things, but like like the cycle brevity is nicer in this cryptocurrency world that we live in now. So that's something that I think that I'm at least a little bit more thankful for. And like we don't have the same issues as the older system with their old ways and stuff. But I think that kind of ties into your point. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, I would say that if I had to pick out, these are pretty obvious in my opinion, what are the major formative financial events when it comes to like people's psychological stuff when it comes to money, I would say the dot-com bubble around like early 2000s, that crash is a big one. We had the 2008 financial housing crash. That's another big one. Obviously, the old Android 19 stuff, that is another big one. And then all of the fallout that's been happening ever since then, aka the super high inflation, and also just what is effectively the start of stagflation. So over the last 25 years, effectively, those have been the major financial crises. And whatever point you got in at kind of determines how many of those you saw and how many of the different effects that you saw either affect you or the people around you. I mean, like I was in high school when the 2008 financial crisis happened, and I remember hearing all about it, but I don't really remember seeing much surrounding it because it wasn't affecting my life, but I remember hearing about it all the time. As opposed to when it came to all of the COOF stuff in around 2020, I was actually seeing that firsthand because I was an adult at the time, and it was like, oh, okay, all the things I want to do are shut down, all my prices are getting jacked up, shipping is really weird. So I think that those are kind of the formative events that have happened in the last 25 years. And based on those events, what you've seen is that market corrections of up to like 20% are absolutely possible for traditional financial markets. And then also at the same time, you also have to worry about more than just price go down. You also have to worry about total cost due to inflation going up. And then also all of the exterior factors that can factor into business, which is like, even if you have a bunch of money, if you can't go spend it in the way that you want to, or if the things that you buy are not showing up the way that you want, whether it's like on time or in the right condition, then that's going to be the things that affect you. And then ultimately, the last thing is, in the last 5 years, effectively, we've seen what in my opinion was a very healthy economy start to stagnate. So now I think the thing in investors' minds is that everyone is looking for new opportunities to invest outside of standard operating procedure, aka just shove money in the S&P 500 and call it a day. Everyone's looking for the new tech stocks, the biotech stocks, the cryptocurrency investments, NFTs, things that are going to outperform the rest of the market. And then also at the same time, there's been a bit of a return to stability through things like precious metals or maybe even certain cryptocurrencies if you're that kind of person. What do you guys think about that? Is that how you would describe the last 20-ish years of formative events?
I'm curious, Farmer Jay, if you, because I know you're a little bit older than us. Do you remember stuff as it was going on during the 2008 financial? Because I think if I remember correctly, you got about 10 years on us. So while we were all in high school and stuff, you would have been in the working world. Did that have any effect on you as an adult? Do you think that this like Zenith's little synopsis there is pretty accurate?
Uh, a little bit. I remember that when the market was down during those times, the only thing I was thinking about was that I wish that the years prior I had worked harder to put in money to the market when everything had bottomed out. Uh, the neighborhood, like where my mother lives, the houses went from about $400,000 to some of them dropped as low as at about 150 to $200,000 for the properties, which are now currently worth somewhere in the range of close to $1 million. So at that point, yeah, I recall when everything was going down, the market was going down. I unfortunately was not in a position to take advantage of it.
Okay. So, how do you think those events affect people's psychology? So, for instance, do you think that makes people more or less likely to have bigger reserves, have the reserves in a specific kind of asset? Do you think that we have some like unintentional biases that happen as a result of this stuff?
I don't think that most people think about it that way. I think that most people just live on day to day and they don't take these things into account. There's very few people that want to take the initiative to actually understand the financial markets and how it's going to be, whether in their benefit or detriment, whether they take advantage of things. I think, like I said, most people don't even think about it. I know we would think about it because we choose to inform ourselves by reading or studying or paying attention to what the Fed's doing. But I don't think most people actually care or, yeah, in my opinion, most people just don't want to care.
So you don't think that there's been any change in behavior, like financially speaking, over the last 10 years ish?
No, for most people, no. Like if you look at some of these people out here now, they have car payments that are like $1,500. That's to me that seems crazy. I think that most people
It's
behavior doesn't change. It's absolutely insane that you would take out a car loan for $1,500 when you make what the medium income is of people and what they choose to like and put into a car is to me is crazy. To me, I don't see people's behavior changing.
fair enough. I'll toss it over to Will and Sam. Do you guys think that there's been a behavioral shift, financially speaking, when it comes to how Americans act?
I think I'm inclined to agree a little bit with Farmer Jay insofar as like the middle of the bell curve is still doing the stupid shit, more or less. It's something to that degree. I will say that there's probably a higher degree of more stupidity by more people, because
What,
more
what do you mean
people.
by stupidity? Like more
So
risky things,
low
more bad
leverage economic
spending?
decisions, right? Like
Okay.
buying more liabilities than assets, or wasting, like, so, not like, I'm not trying to put judgment on these. I'm trying to describe them in such a way that we can all like agree and understand. But like when Farmer Jay talks about people getting like cars that have a $1,500, $1,500 payment, like that's, it's not really a high leverage activity as far as making your money travel far and work well for you. It's a high, like, it's a flex of a lifestyle. I would say that there's probably more people that are nowadays, like, I would say that there's more people making more money now than there were back then. So I would think that like the degree of behavior probably hasn't changed a whole lot, but I think that more people are now doing more silly things because there's more people that are out of like what would have been considered a lower socioeconomic place. And so we're now seeing like whereas it probably was that most people didn't have the ability to spend money foolishly. Now now there's more people spending more money more foolishly. That's my thesis anyways. And I think that the people like on both ends of the bell curve, like the super smart end and the super dumb end, or well, at least just the super smart end. We'll just count that one for now. But I think that the people who were already doing smart things are now doing even smarter things. And I think that like it's basically building a gap and eliminating the middle class, if that makes any sense. I would say that
Nope,
that's
that makes
that's
complete
probably
sense.
the change.
Sam, what do you think? Agreements, disagreements?
I think I agree with that concept from Will, but something I wanted to add to that was that like one of the big changes that as we've gone past the year 2000 and we started to adopt the internet and all of this like technology that we've got now, information has become way more accessible. And so people can, like, I would like to think that because the information is now more accessible, more people are going to be willing to step into the arena of, well, maybe it's not that hard to learn about finance. I can just hop onto YouTube and like learn a few things. And then it's like, okay, then at least I'm slightly aware, right? Plus, there's all kinds of like self-improvement mail programs and like all kinds of stuff where like people are teaching about finance, and there's like Fresh and Fit. There's like all this stuff going on where there's going to be a lot of information that normally would not have been injected into the middle class style of people, where most people are. Now it's like, well, here's all the stuff you could be doing, and here's all the stuff. And like, I would even argue honestly that heck, the intersexual dynamics that we have between people nowadays is like a lot more stuff has become aware about how important it is for men to have money, and that's going to incentivize a lot of men to have money. So like obviously there's going to be people that don't, people that do, but I would almost take the flip side and wonder if like people are going to be more incentivized to learn the better things about wealth. And to counter myself, I will say that it's possible that that's not true, because the kinds of stuff that you see on Fresh and Fit, like the Lamborghinis and the ladies and all this stuff that comes with money, like, are they really learning the wealth lessons, or are they just learning how to make a lot of money, not wealth? I think Fresh and Fit does a good job teaching about wealth, but
yeah, I think they have a Money Monday show.
Yeah,
I think that's probably one of their least watched shows, because most people just they want to live that lifestyle before they actually earn it. Like, you got to earn that lifestyle, but most people don't want to put in the work. They just want to show up and have these things handed to them. And I don't think that's a good expectation for people to have. Like, you're just going to set yourself up for failure at that point.
That's fair. I think Sam had a really good point when it comes to the availability of information. And I think that is one of the key things that is actually showing a change in people's behaviors moving forward. I want to stick on this topic for a little bit, just because I want to beat it up, because this is the first chapter in the book, and in my opinion, it explains why you see a difference in people's monetary activity throughout their entire life. This is why not everybody is taking the same singular optimized path. This is why you get that spread of information, that variety of stuff, is because people all have different formative events or psychologies that really form how they think about money, building wealth, and then also spending money as well. So when it comes to the availability of information, I've got two theories to put out there. I think with the availability of information, what it does is it shows that people are willing to go outside of what are conventional or traditional means, because they have the ability to learn things and access things as well. The internet not just created the information, but it created the opportunity. And I think that people have been more and more aggressive when it comes to seeking out new and alternate ways to make money. So I think that people are more willing to do the unconventional thing. And that gives rise to, it gives rise to, I think, where we are right now, which is that a lot of people are going to try to argue that college degrees are not worth it. I mean, in particular aspects, I think if you break the numbers, they are and they are not. But this is a difference in mindset and actual spending and like lifestyle changes that people are starting to make now, as opposed to like 10, 15 years ago, when literally everyone and their mother was just like, go to college, go to college, go to college. And it doesn't matter what, how to pay for it. That was the wisdom of the time. And I think that we're actually seeing a shift in what people are actually doing now. So one of the first ideas I want to pitch to you guys that I've heard about what is going on right now is that we're kind of getting to a time where money is harder to come by. Not in the sense that like the same amount of money to make is harder, but your spending power is decreased, so it feels like you need to make more and more. This has led people to be more risk on, based on the theory I'm throwing out here, is that you can kind of see it in behaviors, which is why I think the explosion of sports betting has gotten massive. And also people are more willing to do things like trade options, trade cryptocurrencies, NFTs, anything at this point. And I think the reason for that is it's that desperation kind of setting in, and it's the idea of trying to tie that to the unconventional opportunities that are available. So now you get this marriage of willingness and the availability of all these risk-on assets. Do you guys think that might be a narrative that is actually true going on right now, or what?
I would say so, especially you just brought up gambling. Like, the amount of people that put down small amounts of money in parlays in which to turn those into a big payday is crazy.
The
Yep.
parlay. This might be kind of. I think
Covers
the
it in the book too, doesn't he? The poor people buying lottery tickets and stuff.
It's essentially the same thing.
He does, but I think that this is the new scratcher. Doing online like 12-leg parlays over sports that you think you know, that is the new scratcher ticket.
Yep.
I don't know. Do you think that people are more risk on though because they feel like desperation and the need to make more and more money? Is that different than what we've seen in the past?
I would say yeah. One, because like with the advent of the information, that also like it inspires way more FOMO now. Everyone's getting way more like everyone can see what everyone else has got, and everyone who's got something cool is super happy to show it off to everyone, which just inspires like a crazy amount of FOMO. So that like where, you know, if you're living in blissful ignorance for a long time, and then you see all these people around you that are similar to you and that like, you know, from high school that you see on your Instagram list or, you know, whatever on Snapchat and stuff, and they're out there doing this cool thing like traveling to Tahiti or they're freaking, you know, driving their McLarens down the street or they're you know, just doing cool things that cost money. Like a lot more people feel societal pressure now to join the club and spend the money and live the flashy lifestyle. Like we all want to be the Instagram influencer. We all want to be the person like, you know, blowing racks and getting bottle service or whatever, you know, like there's a lot more access to info, like we were just saying, a lot more access to information, and a lot of that information is like the stuff that inspires envy, and like the stuff that inspires envy is also like the stuff that's algorithmically boosted because it gets views, because people love indignation and people love drama and people love like that feeling of like you know, wonder and amazement and just like all the elation and everything, right? Every all that chemical cocktail stuff that gets boosted in the algorithm, so that gets shown a lot more. So more people are seeing it, more people are getting FOMO, more people are spending foolishly, more people are now gambling to try and meet what they consider to be the new standard. You know,
I think you hit a really good point there. This is like a third part of the internet trifecta of Sam's point that we forgot to hit earlier, which is that it's not just the availability of information and opportunity, but also social media has drastically affected the way that human society operates, at least in the first world anyways. And it can absolutely affect your psychology when it comes to investing, wealth building, and honestly just your attitude about money. So what do you guys think? How does social media fit into this picture outside of just trying to like get that FOMO? And like, how bad is the FOMO, do you think? Sam, Farmer, what you got?
I mean, I think the FOMO's, I think there's always been like some kind of FOMO. Like without the social media, I mean, people just had something different to look at. And it probably wasn't such like aggressive in its like regurgitation, right? Because kids, you know, who were the success figures that the kids saw? Like they were in magazines. Like there was just a different medium of transfer. And I would say before the magazines were there, okay, well, there were newspapers. And before there were newspapers, they were probably stories. And like there's always kind of been that FOMO thing, but I would say that like there's probably a big psychological difference in the high level of stimulus that we have now. Like it's constant. Anytime you get on anything, some guy's promoting something for you to join his program or whatever it may be.
That's fair. I think that the constant FOMO could also just be surmised as just more fear stimulus, which is that your brain is just being poked by that fear prod more and more on a daily basis than like at any time in the past. I mean, outside of like being in an active war zone or back in the days when you're being hunted by the saber-toothed tigers. So, but the average person, like that 50th percentile person, they're being exposed to all these things. They're being exposed to the pessimism and the fear. And I can see how that leads to more risky attitudes and actual like efforts and actions that you take to try to get ahead of a position that you think you're falling further and further behind in.
Yeah, it's like all your friends are living this cool life and you're slowly fading off into obsolescence. Are you gonna join the cool kids team, or are you gonna like sit in the back seat? Go ahead, Farmer.
I think that goes into kind of chapter 3, the never enough. Like no matter how good your life is, like it never seems like, to most people, it never seems like it's enough. Like you're not willing to count your blessings. Like the fact that you have if you have all your four working limbs, you should be grateful. But most people aren't. They just see the next person doing better, and it's that envy thing where they're, like you said, I'll tie it into what Cena was talking about. Are people more desperate? Is that FOMO real? Yeah. Like right now in cryptocurrencies, what do we have? Instead of people putting their money into solid projects, right now we're having meme season. Like just people want that 1000x quickly now. They want that social media life. They want to be able to floss. They want to be able to show off to everybody. Like, and to me, that's kind of goofy. Like you're trying to show off to people that don't matter to you, that don't care about you. Like these people should be insignificant to your long-term goals.
I like it. I think we all understand this idea and think it's pretty reasonable. So before we get on to the rest of the book, the second macro idea that I wanted to throw out here about how people are acting in today's economic environment is that I think it might have been Kanye, but he said it long ago and it's only become more true, which is that if you can't have land, you try to get a brand, which is that as the cost of capital assets, such as like houses, land, any kind of business ownership, as those go higher and higher, it means it's less accessible to more people. So what people do is, instead of trying to work towards building those assets, it kind of just, you give up, and then you try to reward yourself with something that you think is worthwhile eventually, such as, this is where you start seeing people buy expensive luxury items like Rolexes or like those fancy bags that women like or whatever. But the point is that because you are now foregoing all the traditional conventional assets to build wealth, instead you're trying to find that status or that accumulation of wealth through other means. And in this case, I think that we've seen the rise of luxury goods as sort of status symbols kind of replace a little bit of that old conventional wisdom of like, eventually you're going to buy a house, multiple houses, rental properties, buy a passive business or something like that. And instead people are going for the Rolex and the car and the bag or whatever. What do you guys think about that idea? Is that a formative way that people are thinking now, or do you think that just might be a bit off the mark?
Can you rephrase the question more concise?
Yes.
Because I got lost what the initial part was.
You're good. So because the cost of things like homes, owning a business, owning more traditional investments like gold and silver, these things have gone up so much that people feel priced out. So because they're priced out of that market, they're trying to find other ways to spend their wealth in their life.
Yes, I absolutely feel that way, bro. And that's why I'm buying PDI at 0.0004 instead of buying Bitcoin at fucking $70,000. Like, for fuck's sake, that's
a good crypto example. Yeah,
description of me. Like, of course I'm gonna buy like $1 for pennies. Of fun narrative, right? And I'm not shouting out any coins or anything. I'm not giving financial advice. You guys should go rob banks in order to make money. But this is humor for those of you who
that's not taxable. So
yeah, robbing banks. Well, actually, no. The IRS, they do have a stipulation in there that they put in recently that if you have
this is not new. Money gained through illegal means or stolen property needs to be reported to the IRS. Otherwise, that is another jailable offense in and of itself.
Yep. So not only will you go to jail for robbing the banks, but then when you're released or whatever, then you go to civil court for the money that you owe the IRS.
Will's statements are not approved by Farmer J. Farmer J told you to do none of these things. Go to work, pay your taxes.
Do not go rob banks. Go to work. You're absolutely right, Farmer J. But like Zenith, to your point about like, why are we buying these we are buying these lottery ticket items instead of these larger things that we feel priced out of. Not everyone is fortunate enough to have the money to go put in a down payment for a house. And so this is where we find ourselves.
I think that a lot of the houses that have become unaffordable over the past years were because of the FOMO. People bought a lot more house than they could afford, thinking that everything was just going to keep going up. A lot of people don't have any business owning a home, including myself. Like, you can't make the payments. You can't afford you can't afford the payments, the insurance, the upkeep of the property, and all people did was they kept buying more. They kept buying a bigger house that they could afford, driving prices up. And at this point right now, we're at a point where anybody that wants to get into the market or buy a house, like, it's unaffordable at the moment. So anybody looking to get in at the moment, it's, for the most part, for most people in America, it's just not achievable at the moment.
Bro, it's,
Sure.
we're all chasing these green candles, buying the assets, you know, while they're going up and thus driving the price higher. It's like, when is this going to flip over and turn on itself? Or are we going to print ourselves out of the problem? It's like, what an interesting thing. Zenith, it sounded like you had something there, bud.
Yeah, I was just going to put a bow on this so we can get on to the rest of the book. So the reason I wanted to spend some time beating up these two theories that I've been hearing about, which is that people are feeling increased pressure, which leads to more risk on actions or behaviors. And then lastly, the feeling that you're getting priced out of conventional capital assets. So those two, I think, are reasonable descriptions of the pressures that people in today's current age find themselves in, and can start to explain why they have some of the behaviors that they do. So with that being said, let's move on to the rest of the book. I want to talk about the moving goalpost. I think, Farmer, you mentioned this previously, which is, this is also tied into the chapter about, like, what is enough? So I want to ask you guys, is, obviously we're all here to try to, this is a crypto investment channel. Book Club is designed to look into materials that get people to think about the investment mindset. So we're all obviously trying to grow that number as high as we possibly can. But the question is, when is enough? Like, how do you determine what for you is the correct number to shoot for, as opposed to just infinity?
Well, I think, to
Good
me,
question.
enough, it's, I guess it goes over in the book too, right? Where certain people took certain risk that were criminal in nature, and instead of them enjoying what they had, they're in prison and they lost everything they built over the years. To me, that's unnecessary. Like, I would never want to get to that point. If you're able to live a nice, comfortable life, you don't have to live a life of luxury. But I think if you can just live a peaceful life, to me, that's enough. Like, not a life in poverty or anything, just a good, honest, decent life where you're able to provide for yourself and the people you care about. To me personally, that's enough. Any excess, that'd be great, but to me, that's not necessary. I mean, we should always strive to do more, but not take those risks that where you risk your freedom and whatever you built over the years so far.
Definitely. I think the story that you're referencing there is the one where there's the guy in the book who's a 100 millionaire, but he wants to be a billionaire. So he does something really dumb, and he does insider trading where he gets some inside information that, like, JP Morgan is going to be pouring $4 billion of assets into a company to help, like, rebuild it and renovate it. And then, like, literally 17 seconds after he gets off that call, he calls up another person, which on an unrecorded call, but at the same time, that person and people affiliated with that person ended up buying, like, hundreds of $1 million worth of shares in that company. And then ultimately the stock went up, they sold it, they collected the profit, and then immediately they were investigated for insider trading. And I think they said it was like the most clean cut case of insider trading, and all those people were swept up nice and neat and thrown right in jail. And it's like, you risked $100 million life to try to get an extra zero on there. So this is that example of, like, when is enough? Like, are you just going to keep going until you ruin yourself, or is there actually an endpoint here? And this is the idea of that, like, forever shifting goalpost, which is, like, the closer you get to it, the farther and farther out you keep pushing it, which is that, like, oh, cool, my Bitcoin went to $100,000. I'm going to hold on to it until it goes to 200,000, not anticipating that, it's going to correct at some point and it's going to have that 75% dip.
Yeah.
So,
Any man, to me, that values money over their freedom, to me, is a dumbass.
That's a big part they were talking about in the book too. Like, later on in the book, he's talking about, like, the end result that most folks want is just some sort of sovereignty over their life, where they can do the things that they, like, generally want to do, living in some sort of comfort, and not have to worry about being blocked by price points, not have to worry about being like being trapped in the world that they live in. So that's like as a general rule, finding some sort of contentment in a good plan and developing a good system and then living within that system. As long as you are above that threshold, then like any money that comes after that is all fucking superfluous, or not superfluous, that's the wrong word, but like it's all extra. It's just icing on the cake or something like that. But yeah, he did a great job covering that later on in the book. I highly recommend reading this book for those that have not read this book. It's like 6 hours on Audible, so you throw that bitch in there at like 1.5 1.7 speed, get it done in 4 hours. It's super easy. And also, this is one of the few books that I have a physical copy of, so this is definitely a good one.
Audible lets
Yeah.
you listen at 3.5.
Yes,
I could not.
I'm not at
do
that
anything
level.
higher than. I couldn't do anything higher than 2.2 for this one.
I do not recommend it. Maybe at 3, but yeah, 2 point, like
Sam,
you said,
what do you-
2.5 is good for like actually listening and understanding what they're saying.
I agree. I don't know, man. 2.5. That's a goal for me, getting to 2.5. And this particular author, he read a little bit slower, so I was able to go up to 2. But I want to toss the question over to Sam. What do you think is the enough point for you, and also for other people? Like, what are you planning on doing for yourself, and what would you like recommend to other people that are at your aspirations or below your aspirations, or just some generalized advice?
So you got to know your goal. And if you don't know your goal, then you don't know what you're going to do if you have buttloads of money. And you're probably not going to do something with it that's thoughtful, because once you've got it, you're going to be emotional about it. So having a goal beforehand, knowing what you want, is a good thing. For myself, I would have to say that because my life is so revolving heavily around construction, I don't need all of the money in the world. What I need is enough money to buy back my time and enough money to buy materials to build a few houses. And basically, because I love the process so much, and I love like the people in my community that might want to do it with me, if I can build an opportunity, like if I can get $1 million, right? Okay, $1 million would pay for building a house, which could turn into a passive income. Would buy the material and buy my time. I could be like, hey, who wants to come work for me for a year and make 100K, right? Like, think of the opportunities like that you could share with people that also want opportunities to build wealth. And like, for me, it's all revolving around construction. So like, there needs to be enough to get my time back and to build houses. And like, once I get to the point where the houses pay for my lifestyle, then it's a scaling thing. Okay, I'll just keep building them until like, I'll start to build up my lifestyle at that point. But like that's it for me. I mean, pretty simple.
Fair enough. I think there's one central point of what we talked about with this theory or this exercise was the idea of buying back your time. And this is another one of the concepts from the book, which is that like, what is actually freedom? If you look at what has been happening over the last 50, 60, 70 years in the United States, is that people kept pursuing making more and more money to buy more and more things. That doesn't necessarily mean that they felt freedom. In fact, it appears that in the book, the people that felt freedom were the people that bought their time back early. And then every extra dollar they made once they had their own time back, it wasn't buying more freedom. It was the freedom was already established. And this is just extra numbers in the bank that are going to help with whatever you're already doing, because it's less about, the author really focuses in on, it's less about trying to get like more responsibility and money and titles or fame or whatever. And it's more about the idea of control, and the idea that you feel that you are doing whatever you want. Not in the sense of just like pissing off and being a hedon or whatever, but like you are making the decisions that you want to make because they are your decisions and not something that someone is telling you to do. It's the idea that because someone tells you to do something, it kind of spoils it and makes you not want to do it. But if you're the person in the driving seat, that is the idea of freedom, according to this book. Any disagreements? What do you guys think?
I mean, I agree entirely. Like, freedom is, there's so many, like every time I have a conversation with somebody about building wealth, it's really hard for someone to grasp the concept of no, like what would you do if you didn't have to work for money?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, I would go learn this thing so I can go do this job to make a bunch of money. It's like, no. You don't need the money anymore.
Yep.
Like, what are you going to do? So yeah. Freedom is a tricky concept to grasp for those who haven't really gone down that path.
I think there's a bit of a weird question that people don't really think about at the end of that path that you just talked about, which is that because so many of us, like, you need money to survive. You need it to live, to pay the house, to pay the property tax, to buy food, to like literally stay alive. So once that no longer becomes the driving force in your life, the question is, what do you do? And at that point, it's this other half of the question where it's like, what can I do? Like, what is the purpose of doing anything at that point? The purpose is no longer to live. The purpose is to do something because I think it is worth doing, or that you find enjoyment out of it. So that's where you start to maybe like operate on such a macro scale that you can start thinking about like, how do I improve a community? Or if you get real crazy, how do I improve like a state? I mean, very, very few people are ever going to get to like Fortune 500 company size or nation state size. But I think that at the end of that journey, there is the question of like, how do I start influencing the world around me? Because I think that, at least for men anyways, it's very, I don't know, there's just like this thing that makes you tick where it's like, I want to see my impact on the world. I want to see the thing be built. I want to see my effect. It's like you could call it hubris or ego, but it's like, I want to see where I impact things. Is that crazy to say?
No, dude, I got this, bro. That's how that answers the drive to live forever. That answers the like, I'm never going to die. If I change the world, if I make the world a better place, if I go out and I have children, if I build a huge pyramid, if I become the president of the United States, if I conquer all of China, right? Like then you live forever. And living, and like we all know that we can't like physically live forever, but we still have that drive deep inside. And so if we change the world and we make the world a bigger place, we have more impact, then we get more like, you know, mental energy and real estate in other people's thoughts and zones. That's why like becoming an influencer, or like becoming the president, or like being the most Googled man in the world, or like solving the crisis of hunger in Africa, or being the first person to build a rocket to go to Mars. Like that is the intrinsic like desire to live, you know. And this methodology of becoming rich and solving large problems and just being bigger and larger in life, like everyone has a different level of drive to which they want to, like, you know, quote unquote live forever, and different means by which to achieve it, you know. But that's the ultimate like what like the two prime directives, you know, to survive and then to replicate, or something like that. It's solving both of those sort of deals all at once. So that's the like the boiled down to, not necessarily first principles, but like boiled down to the base driving factors there, at least in my interpretation.
I like it. Let's kick it back over to Sam. So once the money question has been solved, what's next?
Well, yeah, once the money question solved, then you get to solve real problems, like big boy problems. You can start to look
at the big boy problems.
Well, the big boy problems are everything outside of yourself. So, like someone deciding that they're going to just like pay for their lives and survive and all this stuff, they're just maintaining an existence. They're just not causing a debt to society by existing. As soon as you are beyond the point where you could ever be a debt to society, guess what? You can now figure out how to add value back to society, and do like above and beyond things. Like, for example, I mentioned like, hey, if I've got $1 million and I like building houses, and if I find people that also like building houses and they don't have opportunities, then I can make the world a better place by putting them in positions where they can take opportunities. And like, I just imagine doing that on a scaled up level, the more money I get, right? So it's like everything beyond the like once you've paid for your existence and money's not an object anymore, everything else is just energy that can be directed to improve other things or destroy other things, if that's cool with you. But like most people probably want to improve stuff. So you can go do mission trips to Africa, or you can just say, you know what, screw Africa, let's just get everybody out and move them somewhere else. Let it be a desert. Like, you know.
There. All right, I'm going to kick it over to Farmer Jay for the final thoughts before we do a hard transition here.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about the idea what comes after the money question. Once the money has been solved, what is next?
I guess I'll tie into Sam's point. Like, if you're either gonna choose to be about yourself, or you're gonna either want to contribute to society. I think most people don't want to contribute to society. Most people want to be selfish. That there is those people that do want to contribute to society and actually have it brings them joy and fulfillment to their lives to do these things. Like it's just not about you. It actually brings you joy to actually help people. If you can put yourself in that position, I don't think there's a greater fulfillment in life than that, because these things aren't about you anymore. It becomes more about what you can do for others than yourself. And although that you can also say that's kind of selfish, because some people just do that because that actually brings them fulfillment. But so it can actually be a good thing for both people, for the people you're helping and yourself.
Like it. Alrighty, we're going to transition to one of the topics that Centurion 54 actually brought up in the book club Telegram, which, by the way, if you are not in, go ahead and join. Will probably give you the link to that at some point. Hey, what's up, Centurion? We want to talk about the chapter surrounding reasonability versus rationality. The way that the book describes these two terms is that being completely rational, or 100% rational, means that there's zero emotion and you are just looking at the Excel sheet trying to maximize the amount of returns you can get and maximize everything possible. How you feel does not matter at all. Reasonability is where he introduces this idea of investing is somewhat of a social game, which is that when you tell other people your investments, you don't want to be looked at like you're a crazy person who got out of the psych ward. You want to do things that make sense and make your life make sense. So this also ties back into that formative ideas category, which is that like the things that you worry about are going to be the things that you try to mitigate against. And this is where that reasonability comes in, which is one of the examples in the book was like back in the Great Depression, money was hard to come by. And then obviously around that time, there was also bank runs around 1929 and whatnot, which means that people were more willing to hold on to cash. They wanted the ability to have that thing and never give it control to someone else, so they always have it when they need it. So the reasonability question now is, it's very easy to yeet your entire paycheck into Bitcoin, but I can't eat a Bitcoin. Even though, by the numbers, that might be the most optimal way to do it. So you could arguably say that this chapter is the gray zone question, which is that there is a judgment call about what is the correct balance of reasonability versus rationality. So what do you guys think? Do you think that in today's day and age, we are leaning more towards mathematically optimal or more towards our own like lives and comfort, so to speak?
I would just default to the comfort answer. What can you go a little bit further about the mathematical?
Yeah, sure. So this might require some other topics to be thrown in here, like the idea of having some breathing room, or the room for error, so to speak, which is that theoretically, if you wanted to get the most possible gains out of your investments, then you should have all of your money into what you think is the highest growth or the best possible EV play, which has the potential to go south and then wreck you, aka that play goes poorly and you get $0 at the end of the day, and you have to start over from there. So, I mean, as an investor, it's the question of like, this is the risk management question, rational versus reasonable. Like, for example, we just watched the gift token go on what was effectively like a 1000x pump. It's like, cool. Yes. Was the correct answer take all of your money out of every other crypto asset you had and buy GIF? I think everyone would unanimously say, no, that's not the answer. You don't go buy dog with hat. You don't go buy dick with butt. You don't go buy the next meme coin. You stick with what is reasonable, not as what is mathematically possible. Because right now we are in meme coin season, but that doesn't mean that your other investments are null and void at this point. So for you guys as investors, is this just risk management basics? Is that all this is? The
Yes.
reasonable versus rational conversation?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, so it's risk management conversation. Blah, I can't speak. It's the logical brain fighting with the emotional brain. All you have to do, and I'm going to make this sound easy, but it's really not. All you have to do is you have to learn how to force your emotional brain to be to like be in line with your logical brain, or the like you take your oh shoot, you take your reasonable brain and you force it to be rational. Shoot, where am I going with this? I was basically just trying to like, you can force yourself to get dopamine hits from things that make you feel better. So like I tattooed the 5555 on my arm, right? Like, because I was just like, because I know delayed gratification is a good thing to do, like generally speaking. And so I started, like, Quattro Cinco staking Hex a long time ago. And I eventually got to the point, like, because when I first did it, I was like, woohoo, this is crazy and it's awesome and I've just solved a problem. And then, like, afterwards, I was like, oh, fuck, like that money's gone for 15 years. Oh, jinkies, what have I done? And then eventually, like, I thought about it enough and I conditioned my brain enough to the point where it's like, I now, instead of getting that like crazy high endorphin, hit, and then the crazy like peak fall after that, it's like, this is the right thing to do. And when I do the right thing, like, I feel good. Kind of like, when you step into a cold shower, or you go and you lift weights at the gym. Like, it doesn't feel good while it's happening, but you know that you feel good afterwards, and you have that, like, you could sort of like condition yourself to that. Or like if you stop drinking soda and you start drinking water instead, and then you find a way to force yourself to like water so that you get enjoyment from drinking water, the same or similar enjoyment that you get from drinking soda. I don't know if I'm necessarily answering your question right now, Mr. Zenith. Is that something you were looking for?
It was. I don't know if that necessarily answered the question, because I might have asked a bad question. So
Okay.
when it comes to the reasonability versus rationality thing, I mean, I think this is something that the four of us on the panel kind of just like understand intrinsically, which is that, like, make sure that your things make sense, but at the same time make mathematically good plays, which obviously we're in crypto, so there's a good degree of that. And the fact that we're in crypto and not just entirely in shitcoins is another factor about that. It's why I think, like, me personally on the channel, I really try to push the idea of like blue chip coins, like blue chip tokens. There's a good chunk of your portfolio that really should be in those, because it's not going to be the most like mathematically optimal thing to do, but from a safety perspective and the survivability perspective, it's the way to do it, which is that you're not going to be the number one winner this cycle, but you're going to make sure that you're at least in the game for every other cycle to come. You're not going to absolutely wreck yourself at that point. So I guess here's a question about the reasonability versus rational thing, which is that rational talks about trying to play mathematically optimal. In the world we're at right now, it seems that there's more and more people playing the game, and there's more and more sophisticated players in the game, whether they're using technology or AI to kind of get their edge or their advantage on people, or it's just the fact that they have so much capital at their hand that it's almost hard to lose, and that they're more willing and able to take these large size bets that smaller investors simply cannot. So as an investor in this space currently, do you think it's more important to make things that are to make plays that are more rational or reasonable? Are you trying to have better percentage odds, or are you trying to do things that feel better and are going to be, you can't quantify it, but it's going to be good for you to a certain degree?
I think it's good to do both. Trick your head into getting the reasonable reaction from the rational play. If you can figure that out, that's the ticket. Farboy, what you got?
I think that since you brought up GIF, right? I think most of us that bought GIF, in retrospect, wish we bought a lot more, right? But at the time, was that the right play? It was no. I mean, what was it the right play to put in what we did? Right, a conservative amount. Right.
Yes.
It did what it did, and if we would have had put a lot more, then we would have been in a better position. Right. But you can't question yourself about these things. Like you made a play, a rational play, and you want to, since it pumped, you want to get your emotions involved in it, right? And we shouldn't allow ourselves to do that, because then you start looking at the next play and you'll make a bad move, and any gains you might have gained on this play you're probably going to lose on the next one, because you want to get your emotions involved. Instead of just thinking rationally and sticking with the plan. This is my plan. I'm going to allocate this much to these plays. And like you said, the core of my stuff should be in this other things that are more safe. They're not going to perform as much, but I know that the long term, it's more beneficial for me to put my money into these things. And absolutely, you should have a portion of your portfolio allocated to these other plays, but you should always keep in mind that these things can always go to zero more likely than these other things. So even if you see them pump like crazy, I mean, we see it a lot, right? These certain things pump, right, and people just FOMO and they try to chase the green candles and they just end up getting wrecked.
I like it. All right, Sam, any thoughts?
I was about to make a comment about the gift token. I was going to say, it's still got 100x left, guys. I'm going to start buying it up right now. Just kidding.
I mean, it did retrace off. I mean, if you were looking to get in, it's better now to get in now than it was a few weeks ago.
I have seen my brother's ability to get in, and I was not on that ship, and so that one sailed, and I'm going to wait for other deals.
Who knows what else is gonna? Who knows what any of these coins are gonna do really at the end of the day? One of the Zenith, I hope you don't mind if I redirect the conversation here
Please
a little
do.
bit. But the there was a quote to me that really stood out, and again, this is towards the end of the book. But we need to believe that we live in a predictable world, so we turn to authoritative people who fulfill that need. Wanting to believe that we are in control is a mental itch that needs to be scratched. And us talking about the Gifford token right now, which I will admit, like I did very well with the Gifford, and I'm still doing very well with the Gifford investment that I made. And like when I invested into Gifford, I was like, oh, this is fun. I know the guy who's making this. What a cool cat. I'll throw some money at this, because it's like it's a fun story. And then that turned out to be like the best performing asset in my entire portfolio. And I'm just like, what the heck's going on with this? Like, I don't know. I know that I don't know how this crypto thing works, right? There's some stuff that you can get really good at reading, like a good accurate gauge on the market and figure out how systems work and how plays are made, and like TA is very functional for the larger assets like Bitcoin and potentially even Ethereum, and you can get some really good information. You can make some really good plays using a lot of that stuff. But like at the end of the day, all of this price action is just it's a whole bunch of like random spaghetti thrown at the wall and something sticks. And we don't know why the price goes up. We don't know why the price goes down. And we're all trying to like follow people that give us what we consider to be like alpha information, or just like things are going to perform well, or whatever. We're all chasing after these leadership figures that will bless us with their alpha and give us all this great info. And at the end of the day, it's like a lot of the stuff is just a freaking crapshoot, and a lot of it's just like random. And it certainly feels like we made a great decision in retrospect when we won. But like I know that for each one of my winning decisions, I've made like 10 or 12 or 30 or 50 losing ones. So like it's this strange world that we live in. It really is just gambling. It just happens to work more often than or like when you do win, you win bigly, as I think D Trizzle would say, or something along those lines. So I don't know. What do you guys think about people like I don't want to like think like I'm in a position of authority, or like when you guys are looking for information on the crypto plays, don't look at me, because I'm just a fucking peanut brain wandering around the savannah, like throwing spaghetti at the walls, and most of it fails and some of it doesn't. And like I don't think I'm an authority figure for good cryptocurrency information. but like I think just the very nature of being like streaming on YouTube, and there's people interacting and hanging out, like we've got a pretty cool community. Like I don't know shit, but I love hanging out, and I think this is great and awesome and fun. What do you guys think about people looking to others as authority figures, or like trying to find places where we can make sense of this crazy financial world that we find ourselves in?
I don't know necessarily looking at them as authority figures, but
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 yeah,
maybe like
insert whatever word.
yeah, but no, I'm not saying people maybe we shouldn't be looking for that. It's kind of like how the formation of the DGen Roundtable was formed, right? It's everybody just kind of having their own input, and you can take other inputs into account and how you make your decisions. But at the end of the day, your decisions should be solely based on what's good for you. But you should take into account other people's information and what value they can add to it. But you shouldn't put let me try to rephrase this. You shouldn't take into account what's going to work for somebody that's necessarily going to work for you. You should look at their circumstances and look at your circumstances and see how you can use the information you gain from those people to help out the situation you're currently in.
I like it. I'll take a crack at it. So you mentioned that people try to find authoritative sources or people to kind of, the way I'm going to look at it is kind of the Petersonian sense, which is order versus chaos, which is that in the world of chaos, you want to find the anchor points that are your stability, the things that provide order. You can either try to solve the order yourself, or you can look to other people to create that order and that stability in which that you can operate within. And it's, for me, it's the question. The question is, where does the order come from? Because the world is chaos. You got to find the order for yourself. If you live in the chaos, everything will be chaos. Your life will be chaos, and your investments, damn right, will be chaos if you even get to that point, because you're probably just trying to keep your head above water at that some point. So the question is, there is use. There's absolutely practical use to looking to something outside of yourself for that stability or that just point of order. I'm not saying that all of your order should come from that, but I'm saying that there's absolutely practical uses for it, which is that if you don't entirely understand certain things, it means that you are not able to parse the signal from the noise. You are not able to see what matters and what does not matter in regards to that certain subject. So using someone else who at least appears like they understand what's going on or have the ability to explain it to you so that you start to grasp what's going on, that seems like a good external source of stability or authority, as Will's question put it. When it comes to yourself, though, this kind of goes back to more of a philosophical idea, which is, I think, something that we all embody here at the DGen Roundtable, especially in the crypto community, which is that you are going to be your best bet. Improving yourself is going to be the best bet that you can possibly make. And if you can start thinking for yourself instead of relying on other people and keeping that accountability and that reward system inside you, that is where you're going to see a lot of the best gains possible. If you want to simplify things, use existing things. If you want to make better things, better yourself. How about that?
Absolutely.
Will, you are on mute, my friend.
Man, while he's on mute, go ahead and start talking. I think that's a very that's a great way to frame that, because it's like the entrepreneurial spirit, right? You've had some problems in your life, and you're like, no one's solving this for me. Someone needs to create a solution for this, so it might as well be me. And so when you take that energy and you like apply it and try to find ways to make money, right? Then you can start improving a whole bunch of people's lives and like making a whole bunch of great things happen. For myself, there was I used to know nothing, believe it or not, guys. I used to know nothing about houses. And there was some point in college where I just decided, like, you know what? I don't know what's behind that wall. So I'm going to start figuring it out. And then as I did that, and as I was engaging in the learning process, I found that there was a lack of people explaining a certain area. And it was very much related to engineering. And I was like, okay, well, no one else seems to be talking about this, so I guess I'll go like find the answers. And then upon finding the answers, I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to like other people need to know this stuff. And so as a result of that, like we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Hopefully somebody can take all of the stuff that I'm producing and turn around and make something even better out of it. So
I like it. As a bit of a counterpoint, I know. So speaking as an engineer, one of the unfortunate things that engineers do is that I think we fall prey to the idea sometimes that we have to understand exactly how everything works under the hood. It's like, to be a good race car driver, you don't need to understand every last detail about all the different systems in your vehicle. Can it help you understand how to maintain it and how your actions as a driver will affect your pit crew and how many late nights they have fixing the stuff that you just broke? Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, if your goal is to be a race car driver, you don't need to learn about flame propagation inside the cylinder of an internal combustion engine based on the fuel spray pattern, the ignition point, and then also the shape of your piston heads and your that stuff. It's like, that is unnecessary. There are people out there who do care about that stuff, and they will be rewarded for caring about that stuff. Those are the engineers and the designers who are trying to compete with their competitors to make an engine that is better. But unless you are those people, it is important to be able to prioritize and decide which information it is important to work on and improve. Which is like, yeah, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Embrace it and love it. Don't hate it and then go try to rebuild from the foundation. If the foundation's already good, just be thankful and keep going. But also understand where your point to get better is, which is that you have a starting point and you go from there. You don't try to rebuild the starting point just to launch from later.
yeah, I agree, man.
Alrighty. Next topic.
That was
Next
good.
topic.
Yeah, I like that.
I was going to.
Ooh,
All right, I'm gonna talk.
we do have 6 of the chats. I can hold up my magical. Is it time?
Do it.
It
is
is,
time.
ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's time for chat shout out.
Chat shoutouts, and then we are back to the book after this quick chat break. So first off, we have Brown Conservative Capitalist 1. Okay, he says the red pill. He pretty much describing. Yeah, arguably, psychology of money is a bit of red pill ideas, which is like just being aware of the things in the water around you, and once you see it, you can't go back. And then also the self-improvement stuff. Up next, we got Tamtam's first one. She came in a little bit late, but we are super, super happy to have her here. I know Jenna was also excited to have her in the chat as well. Up next, we got our man Hexagon Lost in Asia. He says, happy ETF day to you all. Happy ETF day to you as well, sir. That's right. I guess today is the first official day that the Ethereum spot ETFs were tradable. They were approved yesterday after Gary Gensler decided to delay it for 6 hours. And then 45 minutes into the delay, he went ahead and announced it. So whatever that was worth. But yeah, here we are. Up next, we got Centurion 54X. He says, what's up, D-Gens? What's up, good sir? Glad to see you as always. Really appreciate you being like one of the most consistent people we have out there. I think you're fighting Tam Tam for that title at this point. And then
I will
up next,
say that Battle Hardened Sniper as well. Shout out to Battle Hardened
Yes.
Sniper. He is on point in the Telegram posting about the post shows. I know that he's over in the great Down Under. So shout out to Battle Hardened Sniper as well. I will easily say that Centurion, Tam Tam, and Sniper are some of our most consistent viewers. So, I mean, shout out to all the viewers. You're all fucking great. Give yourselves a pat on the back. We fucking love you guys. We wouldn't trade a single one of you for anything.
You're here on a Friday night listening to us talk about the Psychology of Money book. Yeah, I'm going to call you guys the dedicated few. So hats off to everybody here. And then also definitely hats off to our cabal of consistency, I'll call them.
And shout out to the people on the replay.
True. Replay gang as well. Anybody that... Catching it live is probably the best way to do it. However, if you do catch Replay gang, it means that you can listen to us at faster than 1 times speed. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to how I sound on faster than 1 times speed, because one of the things that I know I'm guilty of is talking a little too fast sometimes. So I wonder if I'm capable of being a 1.5 times or a 2 times speed person. Alrighty, up next we got 2 more to go. We got Large. He says like the smash button, D-Gens. I also saw Farmer and Large chatting a little bit earlier. We were asking what's Large up to. He said twerking. So shout out to
I
you,
want to
brother.
see video.
He's earning that dry powder right now, I think. That's what we're getting at here. And last but not least for this section, we got Moonmutt. Glad to see all you D-gens here this evening. Glad to see you as well, my man. And we're glad to see everybody else in the chat live. Again, if you guys have any questions, thoughts, or comments about the book, the show, any of the stuff that we've talked about, do just throw them in there. We'll cover them as we do. Paul Sachs saying, so fast. Talk you do. Yes, Master Yoda. Yes. All right. Back to the book. Farmer, what you got there?
Large was asking about Carpenters Union, and I believe it's electrician. Am I? Yes. Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. International. Hell yeah.
That's right. They all did the initiation ritual where they have routinely tasted 120 volt. So for one time in their life, they got just a touch of the 440.
It's an electrician's cup of coffee. You shock yourself in the morning with 120 and you get up and go to work.
And if you didn't sleep the night before, you might need a little hit of 240.
Get a 240, and if you're really, really bad, 277 right across the chest.
Ooh.
Oh man.
Hey, how does that go in commercial?
But as far as the voltages and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Most buildings are 480, 277, or 208.
Okay.
Like right now, the current place where I'm at, voltage is 4160, so 4,160 volts. Probably fry you to a crisp if you came in contact with that. So not fun.
Dude, the world of high voltage is absolutely wild. And I know we're getting a little quite technical, but like there is the difference between whether you're getting that delta or the Y configuration and how that affects your voltages. But a lot of it's pretty similar, right? Right?
For the most part, it'll kill you.
Yeah,
for the most part, it'll kill you just about the same.
True.
I'm going to drop I'm going to do a shout out real quick to an old content creator favorite of mine. This guy's name is Electro Boom. For those of you who have never heard of Electro Boom, yes, this guy was like making videos. I want to say he's been making electricity like, it's not serious. He's being fun. He's an actual like professional electrician, but he makes some hilarious videos about, doing electricity wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and drop his channel in the comments. So go ahead and give Electro Boom a subscribe. This guy is freaking hilarious.
Check out the electric guitar that he makes. It's
It's
something. All right. Anyways, back to the book. Next topic I wanted to cover is the idea that wealth is invisible. This chapter also goes in conjunction with the chapter which is the man in the car paradox, which is that if you have a fancy car, do people actually care about you, or are they just looking at the car? And that goes to the converse issue, which is that if you see someone driving a $100,000 Porsche, what does that tell you about the person? Or does it literally only tell you that they spent $100,000 or went $100,000 into debt to get said object? So this is kind of like a two sides of the coin thing, which is that wealth is numbers in a bank account or assets on a balance sheet somewhere. And then people looking rich is something possibly entirely different, which is that obviously the whole point of making money is to eventually spend the money on something. But also if you spend the money, you no longer have the money.
Yep. It's a tool.
So that's
it's
why you only buy supercars that don't depreciate in value the same way. And if you don't buy these fancy things, like there's no way to passively have irrefutable visual evidence that you are a man to be contended with. Everyone just thinks you're normal.
Yeah. Well, I live in an area where people have no business owning a Benz or higher-end cars, right? But they do, which I always found it kind of like, why would you get that type of vehicle when you live in this neighborhood? It's not a completely bad neighborhood, but it's just a middle-class neighborhood, where you should be driving a Toyota or a Honda or a Ram. But I see people here where they're parking their $100,000 vehicle on the street, like literally on the street. And I'm not talking about in front of where you live. Parking out. I park where I live, but most people here, they have to park outside on the street. If you're parking half a block away, your $100,000 vehicle, maybe that's not a vehicle you should be having, and you should be worried more about improving your life than trying to front a lifestyle you don't have. But like you
Oh
just
man,
Will just showed it's the
tell him, farmer.
psychology of these, like, people just want to show off and pretend like they're living a lifestyle they're not. And it's like you said, it's usually the guy that looks like he doesn't have any money that has money. They drive old cars. They're very frugal with their money. I guess it goes over in the book, right? Wealth is about accumulating money, and rich people are people that buy things. Like you just want to own things as opposed to accumulate wealth. See, I don't want to own things. I want to accumulate wealth, and I think that's kind of a point where the book gets to, that there's a difference between acquiring wealth and owning things. Most of the time, it's useless things.
The book does provide a bit of a counterpoint, which is that it's not to say that buying expensive things is always just like bad and stupid and it's like, haha, you fool, you bought a depreciating asset.
There's a time and place.
Exactly. There's a time and place for things. And there's also, it's different strokes for different folks, which is that sometimes the path that you are leading and the life you're trying to live determines that you have to have some sort of public image, some sort of public persona to compete within whatever sphere you're in. And this was the example of like somebody trying to compete for maybe partnership positions, which is that like I know it's very counterintuitive to the actual data on the spreadsheet, but if you are trying to be the senior partner at a like investment company or something, if you are the guy that shows up in a t-shirt and jeans in the Honda Civic every day, people are going to be questioning whether or not you're really about it. Versus if you actually go get some sort of thing that is a bit of a status symbol, it shows that maybe you were like competing on the personal value aspect of it, which is that like you're not going into debt to acquire these things, but it's maybe more signals to your counterparts and your peers that you've achieved a certain level of success and that you are still abiding by principles, but you're now spending a little bit to show some status. It's kind of the idea of like, I don't know, having the biggest feathers in the peacock. It's useful for some people, but for the 90% of the masses, it's just a depreciating asset. All right. So I mean,
I would agree. I think that there's a balance. There's a balance, right? So like it's like when you're living around the area that Farmer Jay was describing, you know, you're not, and you're buying these cars to impress your broke neighbors. It's not going to go as far as like being a leverageable activity. It's not going to go as far as like what you were describing, Zenith, where like if you're a wealthy executive at a business, like showing up in a Pinto, you know, in a tore up T-shirt or whatever, like there's there's something to be said for playing the part that's appropriate to your station, which I think that both of those examples are kind of like the opposite end spectrums. Like you shouldn't be owning a crazy expensive car when you're, you know, earning a, you know, meager or modest salary, and it doesn't necessarily do you the best like leverageable perspective of like the type of person that you are if you own a like a very serious business and you're driving around looking like a bum. So like there's nuance in there's nuance in the leverageable effectiveness of the image that you're trying to put out there into the world, and it just depends on how much you care about what other people think. You know, if you care about your neighbor's opinions more than you care about your money, then, you know, maybe you should go buy that Porsche, or like maybe you should, like, I don't know,
Well,
get a really expensive thing.
particularly where I live in LA and the greater LA area, it's a very car centric culture. So
Yeah.
most people, they like flossing with their cars, right? To me, I kind of find it goofy, but like you said, you could take that money and actually put it, like you said, into things that actually make a difference, like networking events. Like how many of us that went to these crypto mindset meetups or pulse chain meetups, like the type of people you met, the network you were able to make just by going to these events, the people you met, like these are people you know now forever. Like that was a great, That was a greater.
All four of us were at the meetup. I don't know
Yeah.
if you two, if Zenith and Farmer, if you guys met each
Uh,
other then, but it's like
quickly,
we
probably
literally all four of us
interactive.
were there.
Yeah. Well, like I said, like
Perhaps,
you
yeah.
could put your money into far greater use than trying to impress people you don't even like.
That's true. The final positive perspective of buying something like a luxury asset is the idea that you don't buy the Lamborghini to have the car. You buy the Lamborghini to have access to the Lamborghini Owners Club and to do the networking, which is that you see this as an avenue to increase or leverage opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise, which is that you're not doing it because you care about like looking a certain way to the general population, but you care about looking a certain way to the people that you want to work with. And it's opportunity. It's not excess. Make sense? I mean, this is all pretty similar stuff that we've talked about. We've beat this up a million times with different books, whether it was like Rich Dad Poor Dad or The Millionaire Next Door. It's the whole idea of keeping up with the Joneses, which is the spending shouldn't just increase for the sake of increasing and trying to just like materially look good to people you don't care about. It's the idea that you're doing things with purpose and intention. There's a time to save money. There's a time to spend money. There's a time to build wealth. There's a time to be liquid.
Yeah. But most people don't want to see it that way. They just want to just splurge and just to like try to, like I said, impress people they don't like. Like, why?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, there's nothing really new under the sun on this one. This is just a little bit more of an explanation of why we see, I think, diversification or different strategies for things. So that's what I got for that one. Any final thoughts on Wealth is Invisible or Keeping Up with the Joneses? Good. I'm getting thumbs up. I'm getting many thumbs up. All right. I think we probably got time for one more topic. I want to talk about the idea of optimism versus pessimism. This book very clearly states the case that people do not pay attention to optimism. If anything, they kind of scoff at it, but people do pay attention to pessimism and the bad news, which is that they don't want to interview the person that says, hey, great news, we're going to have average growth over the next year. They want to interview the person that says, I foresee doom in the future and everyone is going to lose all of their money. So pass it over to you guys.
Yeah.
Why do you think this is the case? And is there any way to break out of this psychological cycle?
I'm not sure what's that case, but like when you look at movies, like movies that are based on apocalyptic events are always draw a crowd. I don't know what it is about that, but it's just that doom and gloom that brings people in. Like that, I have no idea why it is or how somebody could possibly break it. So I'll pass it over to Will.
Go for it. You boys run with this for a second.
I got this. All right. So, okay. So it's basically evolutionary psychology. The people so over the however long humans have been wandering around the earth, like the people that paid attention to the dangerous stuff and remembered the dangerous stuff and focused on the dangerous stuff are the ones that avoided the dangerous stuff and thereby survived. Therefore, that passes on that trait. We focus on the negative so much more than we focus on the positive as like a human species, because it was a higher leverage play, and that's the thing that led us to be the ones that like survived and replicated and like led our ancestors to have more babies, and this leads to us. So like the general idea of like, why do humans focus on negativity, or why is negativity more sticky than positivity? Think about like how often you read in the story about the firefighters saving the cat from the tree, or something nice and great happening, versus like, oh my god, there's a terrible fire, or this cop shot this other dude, or this other terrible thing happened, right? Like we all focus on the drama and the indignance and the negativity, because historically speaking, and like speaking from like an evolutionary psychology perspective, those are the kinds of things that when people focused on those, they were more likely to survive and exist and replicate and all that sort of thing. So that's why we all like in the modern world have a predilection to focus on negativity and like really sort of drill down and remember that stuff, and it captures our attention better too. So like everyone who utilizes this sort of like makeup or something, like that's basically where it came from.
I say like a survival instinct that this draws our attention more, as in so that we can actually plan against these doom and gloom scenarios.
Basically, yeah, and like just the general like the higher the captivation level of the focus on negativity is, the more likely that you are going to be able to avoid it or fight it or run from it or, deal with it in some manner. The people that ignored the dangers or the negative things, like those are the people that, they're no longer with us, and all of their lines and all of their potential, descendants are all just, they don't exist anymore because they got smoked by a bear, or they ignored the cougar so they could look at the fruit or something, so that's why we as humans focus on negativity so much more than positivity. That's like the lizard brain mechanism of like our survival and stuff. I forgot what the original question was though. Zenith, do you remember?
Yeah, the original question was, why do we focus more on the pessimism as opposed to the optimism? And I mean, you answered it right there. It kind of comes back to the evolutionary psychology stuff, which is that from a practicality standpoint, the people that survived and replicated were the ones that typically understood the fear and avoided the things that killed them. Therefore, you breed into the population a level of understanding and an innate, just, I guess, what's the word, instinct, that certain things are fearful, and you should pay more attention to the fearful things and not get lured in by looking at shiny objects, because that's how you hit by the train that you didn't expect.
Yes. What was the scenario in the book that brought about this question though? That's what I'm curious about, because I remember him talking about it, but I don't remember the story that tied in. I hate to put you on the spot here. You look like you're frantically searching.
Don't remember the one for this one.
I think there's actually a few stories they go through on that chapter.
Fear and excitement are on the same scale of intensity, Blockchain Bay is saying. The fear is easier to contain and comes more frequently.
Fear and excitement are on the same scale of intensity, but the fears.
I think that, yeah, as far as like eliciting a crazy reaction goes,
I think one of the stories that goes through on that chapter is when they talk about how the world was freaking out, how we weren't going to have enough oil to provide enough energy for especially, I think it goes over China, where they would need more oil per day than was currently being produced worldwide. So like that was like a doom and gloom scenario where people just thought that we were going to collapse, and it drew people's attention, but it just didn't come to pass.
True. I think the other half of that story was that, like, when you do have the fear and that pessimistic take, you are more willing to act and actually find the solutions, because the fear requires action, and the comfort and the excitement and the optimism kind of just requires the status quo to keep happening. Because if, like, the point that the book makes, or one of the points that the book makes, is that reasonable, sustainable growth is the goal, but rarely ever happens consistently. It does happen frequently, but it doesn't happen consistently. And that's why the author talks a lot about the idea of surviving and making sure you have the room for error to make sure you make it through those bad times, so that you can keep capitalizing on the good times. So when it comes to the fear and the joy thing, or the opposite, whatever, the optimism, which is that optimism means you're already doing something right, keep doing it, cool. Fear means you need to do something new. And I think the fear is also, I mean, it is fear. It is the fear of getting wrecked. It's the fear of going to zero. It's the fear of all your effort has been for nothing. And that makes sense, because you spent so much effort trying to get from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 that to get all sent all the way back to 0, it's kind of terrifying, because you just imagine that you wasted your life a bit. Yeah.
I got nothing. I was responding to a chat. Oh, dang.
You're good.
Sam, do you got any thoughts? We haven't heard from you in a while, my brother.
No, it's been a lot of good banter, a lot of good back and forth. Anything that's popping to mind is instantly being brought up by somebody else. So.
Oh, dang. I'll let you take this next one. Z, you got one more for us? We got another 20-ish minutes.
I'll be honest, I'm reaching at this point. I think I covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover. I said
snap! About... I see that in the private chats.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
the only other notes that I didn't talk about, which was the getting wealthy versus staying wealthy chapter. This was the chapter that specifically called out reminiscences of a stock operator, which is the story about, I know his first name's Jesse. I can't remember.
Livermore.
Livermore. Yep, Jesse Livermore. And the idea, that's the reason that this author references that story, is because it's a good example of not one but two people in that story who are very good at making a lot of wealth, making a lot of money, and being wealthy, but then their entire lifestyle adjusts along with that wealth level. So when the boom comes, they're doing great, but when the bust comes, they do really poorly because they're betting the farm on everything. This is one of the points that the Psychology of Money author talks about, which is that not only is it the invasive psychology of keeping up with the Joneses or spending more money the more money you make, but also if you're in a world of like investing or something, which is that the bets you're making are probably also growing in size with the amount of wealth that you have, which is that the total number of your portfolio has risen. So the size of moves that you make is also probably rising with it. But you got to make sure that it is not at that level where like one or two single trades can absolutely just zero you out. This is, again, goes to the risk management idea, which is that getting money is hard, but also keeping money once you have it is also difficult, and a different skill set on top of that. Because if you keep making the same plays, you're going to have the same amount of risk, which means that you're still having the same amount of exposure or potential loss. So it really is the idea of like, you got to secure those gains when you get them, and that you got to be willing to understand that the little mental tricks will creep in, and you got to find the ways to deviate from them. So do you guys have any things that you are actively implementing to make sure that you're doing risk management properly?
I just have like a quick comment on what you said.
Go for it.
Like I said at the beginning, this book seems strangely familiar, although it's my first time reading it. It just kind of ties into everything else we've been reading, right? Like, I guess the book is called The Psychology of Money, right? So, and a lot of the books we covered are about that. So it just seems strangely familiar how everything ties in. A lot of the stories we've read in the book, they're all strangely familiar.
It definitely does, bro. And it's like, I wonder how long we're going to go on this book club, basically exploring personal betterment, like finance and, things of that nature. Like how much like repeat material, how many of the same ideas everyone's come up with, and just explored over and over again. I agree. It definitely did. It definitely did sound familiar, bro.
We'll transition into Magma comic books with Agent J soon enough.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's what you want to see, right? Because all we're doing is we're extracting the data out of all of these books and all these wise people. And if we see the same thing over and over again, well, shucks, guys, you should probably do the thing that everybody who's got money is doing.
True. One of the points that the book brings up is I think it kind of pokes me in the chest a little bit for picking the books that I've picked, which is that The Richest Man in Babylon we described as the OG finance book, and everything else is just a remix of it. And then it also pokes me in the chest for the Outliers book, because the Outliers book was the study of truly exceptional individuals in trying to understand why they are the way that they are and see if there's any patterns or whatnot. But then this book straight up says, if you try to analyze data that is so far out of the standard deviation, you're going to start to examine things and start to draw points that is.
You're chopping up, Zenith.
Are you okay? I was wondering if that chopping was for me. You're better now, Zenith. Yes,
I should be back.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So the Outliers book is a study of exceptional individuals, but this book specifically says that the more exceptional people you study, the less applicable that wisdom and those lessons are going to be to you. And that the more general or the more applicable the information to a larger number of people, the more useful it is going to be on an individual scale. Because not everyone's going to be Jeff Bezos, not everyone's going to be Bill Gates. There's literally two of those, and it's Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. So if you can try to tie those topics in that apply to more and more people, that's going to be the more useful information. So I guess that's why this book, it might even subconsciously be telling us, like, look, yeah, a lot of this is going to be repeat information, but the reason that it's repeat information is because it's information that is applicable to the most amount of people possible to help improve their lives and the way that they invest and think about money.
I think it's important that we keep like drilling these lessons into our mind as well. Like the more times we hear these things, the more likely we are to actually learn from other people's mistakes and not make them ourselves.
I hear you.
I
I
agree.
really hear you. I think that where this book actually differs from all the other ones that we've read is that it was the first chapter that I made sure we tried to spend a lot of time on, which was the book acknowledges that there is very general advice for a lot of people, but at the same time, if you think about it, then one could conclude that because the information is so general to everyone, every single person should probably be following the same plan. But this book explains why there's variance, why there's differentiation, why people have different approaches, and why they think different things. Part of it comes with your formative environment, whether it's the financial crisis that you went through last, or it's whatever your relationship with money is, or it could even be your risk and temperament profile, and ultimately your goals and what you're trying to get out of life. So somebody who's trying to have a wife and kids and steady family, they're probably going to have a very different financial outset than some crazy man like myself, who's just some single young guy that's willing to make moves that other people wouldn't do in their wildest dreams. But for me, it makes sense because I have the ability and the ability to do it and the ability to recover if it goes poorly, as opposed to if you are a husband with children and a wife that depend on you, you got to make sure that the food gets on the table every once in a while. It's like, I guess it's a bit of a personal story, but there was one TDY trip I went on when I was in the military. I was like, oh, cool, I'm getting paid a bunch of per diem. And I
What's TDY?
did temporary duty.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I went on a trip to deliver one of the boats I was building and then just oversee some of the testing. While I was there, I was like, all right, I'm in charge of my own travel and my own food, but they're going to pay me a set amount of money every day. So I did an experiment. I was like, what is the absolute minimum that I can spend and still like be a functional human being? So I like went to the local store, got a bunch of stuff that I could cook in the microwave in my hotel room and then also keep in the fridge, and then not like just absolutely gorge out and pig out and like order takeout and go to restaurants all the time. And then it was like, yeah, I can do that because I'm a weirdo and I'm only eating top ramen in a microwave by myself. If I had other people.
That's
Yeah,
not
go for it.
weird. It's high leverage, is what that is. It's high
It is,
leverage,
but at
bro.
the end of the day, it's the difference between not pocketing any money versus pocketing $12 a day. So that's that.
Okay.
This is the you could argue that is the rationality versus reasonable thing, which is mathematically, yes, eating top ramen out of the microwave is the mathematical most cost savings way to do it, but the reasonable thing to do is not live like a gremlin and just like swing by the local restaurant and pick up a hot fresh meal that'll make you feel good and allow you to go about your day. It's trade-offs.
Zenith, there's a very wise man that actually wrote a book. I believe it's called The Ledger Must Balance, and it's about the costs of things and the trade-offs. So you may gain that $12 a day, but like, what are the health consequences to eating cup ramen? You know,
Yes.
that's like the thing to balance there.
I'll have to find that book. I think I've tried looking for this one before, but I don't actually get a book. I just get a bunch of Google gives me a bunch of articles talking about how to balance a ledger instead of
Let me send you. I will drop the link in the chat. I have to find. I know I wrote so this is the book that I wrote. Is the book that Sam is referencing, and I wrote it using ChatGPT to tell a bunch of stories of a whole bunch of different people that traded different. I call them pillars of value in the book, but it's essentially you have health, you have time, you have money, you have attention / energy. You have resources, and then you have like your brand and how you trade these things to get other things. And so I basically used the book to describe what they all are. And then I had a whole bunch of stories of like, for instance, a person trading their energy to go and like chop wood outside so that way they have more resources, which is firewood. Or they go and they trade their time so that like at their job to get money. You know, so it's a whole bunch of fun, sticky little stories. But I will go ahead and find the link and drop that in the chats. Somebody else start talking about something.
I mean, honestly, I think we're ready to move to about final thoughts on the stuff, unless we have any final chapters we want to talk about, because I think we've beaten this thing up pretty good, and we've covered where it's the same as everything else and where it differentiates from all the other stuff we've read.
I've got one final question for you guys. I've got a question for you, host. So there was a quote that came out of that book that was something along the lines of, you are only familiar with about 0.0000001% of what the financial markets do and how money works. But because of like what you've experienced in your life, you think that you understand like 80% of it. So recently I had a call with somebody who is in a world that is very different from most people. You know, people who buy and trade businesses and make big money moves and all that stuff. And there were a lot of concepts that were thrown back and forth on that phone call. And I realized on that phone call that like, wow, there's a lot of big terms and like big important things that matter in this world. And it's like, wow, like how much do I really not know? And like we're reading all these books and we're trying to learn more and extract all this value. But at the end of the day, like, how much more would we know if we had the combined wisdom of the last 1,000 years of men who worked with money, right? And to see the like ups and the downs and the wins and the fails and like how much more information are we missing? It's just to kind of a get you thinking question.
So, do I agree with the statement that we know less than 1% of the actual stuff, or?
Yeah. Do you think that there's a huge quantity of information that we lack when it comes to understanding financial markets?
So I think there's possibly two ways to tackle that question. The first one is that there is a high degree of confidentiality that is absolutely necessary to have capital markets, which is that you have intellectual property rights, and then you also have to have the ability to operate certain things in private, which is that like if you ran a business, your public like balance books or whatever, where all your costs, all your contracts, what you pay your employees, what you pay your vendors, all that stuff is not public information. And because of that, it allows you to form things and have a competitive edge over other people. So from that sense, yeah, we do, as an individual, you know practically nothing of the information that goes into all of the financial stuff in the world. At the same point, though, is it necessary? Do you need that information? What is the useful and practical information to improve your state in life? So if you believe that you need to understand how Geico does all of their insurance claims and what their actuary tables are and how that goes into their balance of payouts and premiums and what they cover and what they don't cover, I mean, if you're in the insurance field, sure, that might be beneficial to you because you could operate around them. However, if your goal is to make money outside of that field, then I think a lot of the information is just not necessary. It's the idea of, do you need to know everything, or do you need to know what is just practical and useful to you?
Good point. Good response.
I mean, again, it's the engineer pitfall, which is like, do I need to know every little detail about like the metal that I used to build an engine block? Do I need to be there when they cast it and know the very specific like carbon content and the molybdenum content and everything about it, and then also the ways that it cools and how it is injected and what side gets a little more airflow and whatnot? It's like, no. Does the engine block meet the stresses that you need it to meet? Yes or no? If yes, cool, your metal's good. If not, cool, figure out a better metal and then get to that threshold that meets your minimum force required and then also your safety factor, so that you're not an immoral engineer or whatever, or unethical rather. It's figure out the practical limits and then work with it. And then from the business side of things, if you need to find a way to make money and find ways to save money, do that, but also still meet that minimum threshold of function and safety. Don't get bogged down by analysis. Analysis paralysis is very real. And let me tell you, as someone who's very familiar with it, sometimes you just need will to be like, yeah, just give me the 80% solution.
Yep.
And you're good to go.
I like them 80% solutions.
Hey, Pareto principle is everywhere. 80-20 rule. A lot of times it's honestly what you need. So you want to pass that around to anybody else, or did we beat that up sufficiently?
I think you just annihilated it, man. It was great.
Fair enough. I'll tell you what, good. Let's pass it around for a final time. Where can the people find everybody? And what are your thoughts on the book? And where does this fall in your hierarchy of you should read this, or you could probably pass on this? Over to Sam first. What you got, brother?
Well, first of all, about the book, I think it was good. I think it was a nice blend of a lot of ideas, but I don't look at this book as certainly a required thing. It's kind of just like another good angle to have. I would say there's a lot more books with a lot more actionable information in them, and I think actionable information is one of the most important things to extract out of any book. So it would be somewhere around like a 4 or a 5 out of 10 for me. People can find me at t.me/BFB success. That is my community. That is my Telegram. Go there for all of the wonderful things that I have to offer the world. That's all.
Love it. Farmer, what about you, man? What do you think, and where can people find you?
I thought the book was a decent read. It's I guess he says that in the introduction, is a collection of stories, right? So I think that most people learn lessons through stories. Like if you give people a good story, they're able to extrapolate useful information from that and actually apply it. So like I said, it's a good book. Like most of the things that necessary, no, I wouldn't say so necessarily. But you could say that about a lot of the books out here, right? But it is very useful. I did enjoy it though. It's I, I enjoyed the book. It was full of very good, useful stories though. Like I'm not gonna lie, like it was actually an enjoyable read for me. And where people can find me is at the DGen Roundtable's Telegram.
Yep.
And
I will-
that's about it.
Right.
I'll go
if you
ahead
want to
and-
find that Telegram, just go ahead and scan the QR code right under Farmer J, or you can go to the bit link that Will just posted in the chat. Speaking of which, Will, over to you, my man. What you got?
So I think so. Here's an idea that I think I just thought about as far as rating these books and things is I'm thinking on a spectrum of like where people sit in their 0 to 10,000 hours of pursuit of a knowledge base. I would say that this book sits firmly within the 1 to 100 hours range of folks that are working on their financial literacy, financial knowledge, financial principles when they're building that foundation of understanding of this whole line of reasoning. Yes, if you're past your 100 hours of uh financial expertise or whatever, or like how long you've been thinking about money and thinking about economics and thinking about stuff, I would say if you're past that zone, it's still a good read. It won't be as effective as it would be for someone who's like just beginning their journey or something like that. But I definitely think that it's an entertaining book. It's easy to digest. It's quick. It's simple, not complicated. I would recommend it for anyone who one wants a good entertainment read, or two is still in the beginning or the like intermediate stage of their journey. So I'll bump it up to between 0 to 500 hours, something like
Yeah.
that. I think that this
I,
book
I,
that
I
zone.
did not think about it like that, Will. But yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's a great
Yeah.
way to put it.
And I think that's probably going to be a way that I'm going to start it like to the best of my abilities to gauge how appropriate a book is for someone, because I would say I don't know how far I am in my financial journey, somewhere probably between 2 to 4,000 hours, somewhere like there, like roughly speaking. um but like if you're if that's you, if you're in this zone, if you're pretty new, still a good book. I would read this book again. Like it's good entertainment, it's good principles, and it's got good PME, good preventative maintenance education in it. So if you forget some things, this book will remind you of them. So it's a great book. As far as where can the folks find me, you guys can find me in the DGen Roundtable chats in the link that I just dropped below. Another place that you guys can find me is at my Hex Meetup thing, and I actually just created a Bitly link for my Hex Meetup. Oh, I actually created a Bitly link for my Hex Meetup, so it is bit.ly/hex_meetup. My t.me is perfectly fine. It's the one that's right here underneath my name, t.me/hex_meetup. That one works perfectly fine. What it does though is it inserts you into the general chat in the Telegram group with this specific bit.ly link that I made, bit.ly/hex_meetup. It's the same like general principle as this, but this will put you right at the start here message. So I have a start here section inside of my Telegram chat. And so if you follow the bit.ly link and you're a Hexican, you want to meet other Hexicans, then this Telegram chat is for you. Basically what it is it's a place for folks to go where you can interact with other hexagons. And the general idea is that like I'm trying to empower people in all sorts of different areas of the states and areas of the world, areas of different countries and stuff, like create topics that you can that basically broadly describe the area of the world that you live in. So like right now I'm in Texas. So like if I wanted to do a meetup, then I would post in the Texas chat. But I'm really soon, as you guys can see, if you read down here, it says that I'm going over to Denver. Like I'm going to be in Denver on Monday morning, and I'm going to be in Denver for probably about a week. So I'll hit up any Colorado hexagons I see over there. If there's anyone that's chatting around in the Colorado room, then I'll hit them up and be like, "Hey guys, I'm going to the bar at this location at this time." You know, so that's the general gist of how that chat works. But anyway, it's bit.ly/hex
Hey,
underscore.
shout out to Will for making that Telegram chat like where hexagons can just meet each other, like just like that. That's freaking great, man. I find that great. Just random people just meeting each other, going out for a drink or shooting or just hanging out. That, man, I love it.
Thanks, man. I know there's been some successful meetups over in California as well. I don't know how close they are to the LA area where you're at, but I
Oh,
know that they're
they were
doing some
pretty.
stuff.
They were pretty. I mean, they weren't too far, but LA traffic, they were basically in another country.
Ah, yes. Excellent, excellent. And I see we got a chat from DB Zen. Can we go over the DRT liquidity pairs? It's starting to look real interesting. Mr. DB Zen, I will say that there are some very interesting DRT pairs. It's been paired up with PGIF. It's been paired up with W Pulse. There's a whole bunch of people who have paired it to some other silly coins that I don't know anything about, so I'm not going to talk about them. But they're like for the folks at home who are curious about DRT. If you just go to Deck Screener and you type in the letters DRT, you will see a logo that looks very much like this, DGen Roundtable, right? And that is our. It's not a coin that represents the channel. It was a coin that was made live on stream by Crypto Sloth while we were showing people how they can make meme coins, right? So it does not represent the channel. I just happened to go on Deck Screener and spend $300 to say like, hey, if DRT has a coin, if there's a coin out there that says DGen Roundtable, then I would love for it to have this logo, and I think it'd be super fun. And so it's not, it's like there's no expectations. It's a shit coin. You should definitely not buy it. I highly recommend people not spend money on it. But there's a fuck ton of it in liquidity right now. That's all I gotta say. So if you guys are looking to purchase it, then it's super duper available. Over half the supply is in liquidity pools right now. But that's all I'm going to say about that, Mr. DB Zen. So I've spoken. Farmer J, I do not have a copy of the book with me. Would you mind holding that up to the camera, just the front cover?
Your
And I'm going to
book?
go ahead. Yes, sir. So this one belongs to Farmer J, so you guys can't have it. But this is the Tower Climbers Cookbook. Sam and I have created a cookbook of all of our excursions going about the states and making different, basically bachelor meals that are super duper easy to cook, super awesome, and super fantastic. Well, Zenith, while you were talking about your excursions as a Coast Guardsman, going and getting per diem and stuff, that's basically what Sam and I were doing for the tower climbing industry, and that's good, Farmer J. I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. But as we were going about the states, we were being very what's the phrase I would like to use here? High leverage with the amount of per diem we were being given and the quality of the food that we were eating. It's like a high quality but also low cost, and like basically making all of our meals from scratch. So if you guys want a copy of that cookbook, what you need to do is you need to go to will.pls.fyi, and that is essentially just a it's kind of like a link tree. But when you go over there, you will see I will go ahead and type it in the chat since I'm asking you guys to go to a link. I'm going to drop the link. But if you click on that link, will.pls.fyi, there is a public address that is my Pulse domain. Just send $10 there if you want to copy the book. And if you want me to come and hand deliver it, timeline to be determined. If you want me to mail the book to you, then send $30 to that Pulse chain /Ethereum address. You could send Pulse, you could send Ethereum, you could send DAI, you could send PDAI, you could send anything. I mean, as long as it's like reasonably $30 worth of a token that has some sort of liquidity. ETH, Pulse, and like DAI from Ethereum those are the simplest things to do. So that would be the thing that I would ask you to send. But if you guys want to send stuff to there, just send me a message. You will also find on that very same Linktree Pulse domain thing, you can find my Telegram, you can find my Twitter, you can find my Facebook, you can find my Instagram. Send me a message on one of those platforms, and let me know that you've sent me the money, and let me know where I can send this book or where I should come hand deliver the book to. So if you guys want a cookbook, there's only 50 of them. As you can see, there's little serial numbers on the book that he held up there earlier. But that is all that I have going on in the near future. You guys can count on next week for book club. I'm going to be hosting, and we're going to be covering Sci-Vive again. So I'm not sure
What
which
chapters
chapter
are we covering? A few of them, right?
I think it's the next chapter, and I want to say it's a very short chapter if memory serves. So we will be very if you guys go on YouTube and you look up Sci-Vive, if it's a chapter that's less than like an hour long, then we're going to be covering 2 of them. So I'm pretty sure it's chapter 6 and 7 of Sci-Vive. So, I'm getting from our producer, no, it is a 3+ hour chapter. So to be determined, but we're covering Sci-Vive. So you guys can't go wrong if you start reading chapter 6 of Sci-Vive. So that's what we're covering next week on the DGen Roundtable. And then catch us later on Sunday as well. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Brendan will be hosting our Sunday show over here at the DGen Roundtable. But that's also to be determined. We'll be talking about some cool things. Presumably, this Ethereum ETF, if Jay hasn't already done an emergency stream on it, we'll probably talk about it again just for shits and giggles. But, oh goodness, excuse me. But that's all I got. Z, go ahead, take us away before I talk us all to death.
Will do, I guess, just as a fun little fact, if you were reading the Wild SJ Sci-Vive version or listening to that on YouTube, then the next chapter, which is chapter 6, Respect, that is 5 hours and 24 minutes. So
we're doing one chapter. All right.
Yeah, we're doing one chapter, and I will be listening to that at double speed at minimum. That is what we got. But yes, Will also mentioned it. We have the flagship Sunday show coming up this week. This is probably going to be a very big episode for us because the Ethereum ETF just got approved on Thursday afternoon. And we've had 1 day of trading it so far on the open markets for the official stock stuff. Crypto's 24/7, but the traditional stock market is not, which means that this is still very fresh news, and the data that we have will still be very, very early on. Excuse me.
And Monday is a holiday.
Monday is a holiday. True. Happy Memorial Day to everybody.
Memorial Day.
Oh, snap. Well, yes. Happy Memorial Day for all of our fellow fallen service members.
Those are good opportunities to get 1 day of extra work ahead of everybody else who's slacking.
That's correct.
That's one way to look at it, yes.
That's what I'll be doing.
This coming Wednesday, we are having a Whiskey Wednesday show, so we're going to have a special guest for our 1 hour segment, and then after that, we are opening the floor to all of you guys if you want to come on, hop on, hang out, ask questions, just shoot the shit, so to speak. That is what that is for exactly. That is the community stream, and we hope to have as much community as we possibly can. So, as far as me, you can find me on Twitter and X at ZenithDI, and if you like memes and a little bit of an education, check out the Hexaco Space Force channel on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. On Twitter, I believe it is Hex Space Force, because I ran out of characters. So, my final opinion of the psychology of money. I like Will's analysis of how many hours for your 10,000 hour mastery stuff this falls into. I would agree. It's definitely early on, and I would call this a beginner level book. I can easily see this book being swapped out for The Millionaire Next Door. It covers very similar concepts and tries to convey a similar idea. It covers a few extra different topics, and it doesn't cover some of the other stuff that book talks about. But as far as general stuff, it is still very much a beginner idea book, which is that you need to understand the difference between spending money, saving money, and building wealth, and then also understand the psychology of money, that goes with it when it comes to how you spend it, how it affects you, and then how it changes once you get to different levels in the game, so to speak, which is that your 0 to first 100,000 is probably going to look very different between that and once you make $1 million, how do you stay above that $1 million mark? So that is what I got. I would definitely, it's a good read. It's an easy read, I will say that much as well. It's a good narrative book, and there's even more crossover with other books, because on the back, there's an endorsement from Annie Duke, who is the author of Thinking in Bets, which we also covered, and she says, quote, "This is that rare writer who can translate complex concepts into gripping, easy-to-digest narrative." And I would 100% agree with that statement. So that is what we got for this one. As far as my next book that we're picking, I'm thinking it's either going to be The E-Myth Revisited, The One Thing, or The Power of Now. I believe 2 of those are at the top of the Michael Sartain book list, which is why they caught my eye. And that is what I want to focus on, unless someone comes up with a better option in the community, in which case we will do that. Alrighty, that is all we got for this evening. Thank you again so much for joining us. This has been a good chat. I know we extrapolated a lot on the ideas, and I really like that. So we will catch you guys next time. And as Jay of our team likes to say, we know that time is your most valuable asset. So we want to thank you when you spend it with us every time. So with that being said, until we catch you on Sunday, I hope you all degen responsibly.